She laughs with them, but never because of them. You notice this, and you were never meant to. At the dinner table, their voices rise like smoke compliments, comparisons, conspiracies, but her smile does not belong to the noise. It floats above it, thin as a blade, distant as a ghost. Her friends praise her beauty, her choices, her strength, but you see the twitch in her eye when they do. It is not joy. It is the instinct of prey caught under a velvet paw. She knows too well that those who toast to her are counting her sips. They wait for the stumble, the crack, the moment her mirror shatters. You sit apart, say less, watch more. And so she lets something slip, a silence she does not share with them, a glance not measured for applause. She knows you are not safe, but you are outside, and that makes you real. If this whisper already knows, you let it echo. Like the video, leave your shadow in the comments, subscribe, and stay near the silence. The woman who is most praised by her friends is often their slowest sacrifice. You think it is admiration the way they look at her, the way they touch her hand when she speaks, the way they nod too often and laugh too loud. But no one touches a flame like that unless they want to see how long it takes to burn. You can hear it in the cadence of their praise, too warm, too practiced, too perfect. Each compliment is the sharpening of a blade wrapped in velvet. Each toast is an unspoken dare stay golden, or we'll remind you what rust tastes like. She walks among them like a queen crowned in ice. Every word she says is a test of balance, too confident, and they'll call her arrogant, too soft, and they'll circle like vultures. She laughs not to join them, but to survive them. The sound leaves her lips like a hostage note folded in satin. She knows this ritual. She was trained in it. She remembers the first time she made another girl cry in secret, and how her mother smiled when she said, "Don't let them see you lose." There is no sisterhood here, only surveillance. You watch from the edge of the room. You do not belong, and she senses it. That is why she lets the truth leak through her performance. A half-second glance at her wine when the flattery becomes suffocating. A breath too long when they say she's the strongest one among us. She's tired of strength. She was never given a choice. Her friends do not love her. They perform love around her, like a funeral dance for a body not yet cold. They compliment her clothes because they chose duller ones. They ask for her advice only to remind themselves they won't follow it. They call her luminous, but only in rooms where they can dim the light around her. Each of them smiles with a silent wish, let her slip just once, but she never does. That's the curse. You understand something no one else here dares speak aloud. The more beloved she becomes, the more danger she's in. Praise is not nourishment. It is sedative poison, sweet, slow, and irreversible. They do not seek to kill her quickly. They want to witness the crumbling, sip by sip. They want her shine to falter so they can comfort her, own her collapse, drape her in sympathy like a noose made of silk. She was not born cruel, but she learned cruelty like a language, and her fluency keeps her alive. You notice how she touches her hair when someone enters the room, how she blinks twice before she answers a friend's question. These are not habits, they are survival codes, each gesture designed to disarm, to delay suspicion, to buy time. You know the kind of girl they think she is, but you know better. She's not admired because she fits in. She is admired because she carries all their repressed rage beautifully, like a well-dressed scapegoat. The jokes they make about her are never funny. They are warnings, disguised as intimacy, veiled envy murmuring through pearly teeth. They say she's magnetic, but magnets attract by force. They say she's effortless, but her entire life has been a war on effort. They say she's one of them, But they would never trade places with her, not for a second, because her power is not real. It's ceremonial, conditional, like a queen in a child's game worshipped until she forgets her place and the game turns brutal. There is no loyalty in this circle, only choreography. You are not supposed to see it. That is why she looks at you the way she does, not with invitation, but with mourning. You remind her of the freedom she once had before she learned that to be loved by women means to be watched. To be loved by women means to never bleed where it shows. To be loved by women means to live inside a theater where the audience is also the executioner. She cannot trust them, not fully, because they mirror her, but never hold her. And in this world, mirrors are more dangerous than knives. They expect her to rise, to shine, to hold their secrets, to fall only when they're ready to catch her in stories they can retell without guilt. That's the pact. You do not offer praise. That is why she lowers her guard. You ask her nothing. That is why she gives you more than they ever receive. Because you see it, the crown on her head is made of glass teeth, each one sharpened from compliments, cemented with applause. If she bows too low, it will pierce her scalp. If she stands too tall, it will slice her throat. There is no way to wear it without bleeding, so she learns to tilt her head just enough. She speaks only in ways that maintain equilibrium. She cannot afford rage. She cannot afford despair. She cannot afford desire. Desire is a crime in the court of feminine harmony. Desire means breaking the mirror. Desire means pulling away from the ritual. Desire means choosing something or someone that wasn't voted for by the tribe. And that is why you are dangerous. You are not in the game. You do not play. You see her, not the crown. And she hates you for it the way a prisoner resents the one window that can never be shut. But she returns to it anyway, glances, lingers. Because in your silence, she hears something her friends cannot offer a witness, not a rival. They braid her hair and then tangle her future. They buy her gifts and then price her soul. They plan her birthday and then forget her name when she stops performing. That's how it always ends. She knows it, you see it, and in that shared knowing, there is something that terrifies her more than betrayal freedom. Because freedom would mean facing the emptiness behind every compliment. Freedom would mean losing the sisters who poison her slowly. Freedom would mean no more applause, just the raw ache of being unknown. So she stays. She lets them praise her. She lets them toast. She lets them tell her who she is, over and over, until even she forgets what she would be without their scripts. But sometimes when she thinks no one is watching, she touches her crown, not to adjust it, but to remember where it hurts. And in that moment, you see it clearly. The crown they gave her was never a gift. It was a warning. She only trusts the one who does not compete for her reflection. You walk into the room without a mask, not because you are brave, but because you never needed one to begin with. And that unsettles her. They wear masks made of love, of matching eyeliner, of shared complaints and echoing affirmations. Each girl curates herself into a gentle parody of the others, a soft rebellion without war, a cult of harmony where every emotion must pass a beauty test. Vulnerability is rehearsed. Jealousy is hidden beneath compliment. And no one dares to speak a truth that hasn't already been approved by the circle. But you do not ask for approval. You do not ask for reflection. You do not need her to confirm who you are. And so she stares at you like a myth, a puzzle she's seen before in childhood dreams but forgot how to solve. Because every man she's ever known entered with an agenda to tame her, name her, claim her. Her friends want to become her, but the men want to possess the version of her they imagine in silence. She has always existed in fragments too much for one hand, too elusive for one mirror. She plays with reflections because they're safer than raw eyes. Reflections can be controlled, but your eyes do not reflect. They receive. They watch without praise, without envy, without need, and that terrifies her. She cannot seduce someone who doesn't flinch. She cannot test someone who doesn't respond. She cannot predict someone who doesn't perform, and that's why she begins to speak. Not the way she speaks to them. Her words to her friends are wrapped in cotton safe. Careful, collective, with you. They arrive raw, unpracticed, slipping sideways through pauses and unfinished sentences. She does not smile when she speaks to you. She trembles, because she knows if you are not seeking your reflection in her, you might be seeing the part of her that even she hides, the unedited one, the one her friends would exile if it ever showed its teeth, the part of her that doesn't want to be soft, the part of her that wants to dominate, vanish, scream, abandon, rise alone. They told her that being loved means being mirrored, but you offer nothing back, no flattery, no confirmation, not even contradiction, just stillness, just the unflinching presence of someone who listens without wanting to edit her, and that is the most dangerous thing you can do to a woman like her, because if you do not want to change her, then who is she? Without the performance, she begins to test you in strange ways, small disappearances, misdirections, a touch that lingers too long, followed by a week of silence, an invitation into her world, then a sudden cold shoulder when you enter too gently. It is not because she doesn't know what she wants. It is because she doesn't know how to be wanted by someone who doesn't need her to play dead first. You do not chase. That's why she circles. You do not explain. That's why she asks. You do not offer comfort. That's why she begins to confess. Her friends think they know her because they speak to her every day, but they speak to her mask. They speak to the throne she stands on, not to the girl beneath it, buried in dust and old betrayals. You do not speak to her crown. You stare at the bruise beneath it. She is not used to that kind of silence. She is not used to being watched as if she is unfinished. So she talks, not loudly, not publicly, in fragments, on rooftops, at midnight, through half smiles. She tells you things not because she wants advice, but because she knows you won't give it. She drops memories like knives in water to see if you'll bleed. You never do. That's when she knows you are not competing with her. You are not trying to match her pain. You are not trying to mirror her glow. You are simply standing there, bare, unearned, and somehow unshaken. She both hates and craves this. Her entire identity was formed around attention, around reaction, around adjusting her light to fit someone else's fear. But you offer no instructions, no blueprint, no reward. You do not turn her into a goddess or a victim or a metaphor. You let her remain untranslated. Her friends polish her myth because they benefit from it. You let her rot in peace, and in that rot, something holy starts to grow. You tell her nothing. You ask no questions, and yet, she hears more in your silence than she's heard in decades of birthday speeches and girls' nights and sobbing sleepovers. You're not interested in fixing her. That is why she begins to break. Because if you do not need her to be perfect, she no longer knows what to be. She was built to be interpreted, to be desired through filters, to be adored through distance. Her entire worth calibrated by how many people couldn't touch her but still long to. But you do not long, you do not chase, you simply stay. And that is what burns the deepest, because in your stillness, she must face the unbearable truth without the applause, without the gaze, without the reflection. Who is she? Not what. Who A woman with wild guilt in her laughter. A woman with anger folded neatly into politeness. A woman who wants to run barefoot in winter and forget her name. But she doesn't, because there are still too many mirrors in the room, still too many expectations carved into her spine. So she dances, yes, but slower now. She laughs, but only after glancing to see if you're watching. And you are. Not to own her, not to decode her, just to remember her, exactly as she was in the moment before she edited herself for the room. They tell her to express herself, but you never ask her to explain. They tell her she's powerful, but you never need her to prove it. They tell her she's beautiful, but you never use it to measure her worth. And that is why your presence feels like exile and like salvation. Because with you, she is nothing. And that is the first step to being real. The woman who seeks warmth from her circle often burns colder than the exile who watches. She used to think their laughter would melt her, that the collective heat of shared mascara, group selfies, late-night confessions would finally thaw the part of her that always felt slightly dead inside. That friendship was a fire you could lie beside, if you performed correctly, that if she kept the rhythm, stayed soft enough, funny enough, small enough, the warmth would wrap around her like a home. But you know what she has slowly come to realize? The warmth was a script, a lamp, not a flame. Warm on the surface, cold beneath the skin, and now, even in their embrace, she shivers. She doesn't tell them. Of course she doesn't. They would remind her how loved she is, how chosen, how enviable. They would offer therapy words in Instagram tones, tell her to take space, do self-care, drink water, but no one would listen to the cold. No one would sit with it. They would throw pillows over it and call it healing. So she stays quiet, pretends to be full, pretends their warmth still burns. But when she looks at you, the one who is not in the circle, the one who never tried to sit near their fire, her eyes betray her. You are colder than all of them, and yet, somehow, she feels less frozen near you. Because the warmth you offer is not made of performance. It is not heat on demand. You are not the kind of man who warms everyone. Your silence is a cold field, a mirror at midnight. But it does not lie, and it is the absence of lies that finally begins to thaw her. Her friends hold hands, chant affirmations, wear matching rings, promise eternity, and yet they scatter the moment someone breaks the rules. The warmth is conditional, the moment she says too much, wants too much, aches too deeply. Someone will whisper she's not the same anymore, and that whisper will spread like smoke in a velvet room. She knows this. She's seen it. The excommunications dressed as distance, the group chat slowly edited, the rituals rearranged so she's the last to know. It always happens to the one who burns too honestly. So she stopped asking for warmth. She performs it now, wears it like perfume, but underneath, she's ash. And you, the exile, the watcher, you do not offer comfort. You offer recognition. You do not say kind things. But you look at her with the kind of gaze that says, I see the bone beneath your charm. You make no effort to warm her, and that is what makes her crave the shelter of your gaze, because even fire can lie, but cold cannot, and she is tired of lies that feel like friendship. Her circle congratulates her for her vulnerability, but only when it's palatable, when it can be wrapped in ribbons and hashtags. They celebrate her breakdowns only when she recovers quickly. Their warmth is real, but only when she plays dead in the right way. With you, she never has to play. You do not ask for a confession, but one night, it spills anyway. Not in words, but in how she stops smiling. in how she lets the silence stretch between you without apology, in how her shoulders lower for the first time in years. She doesn't ask you to understand. She doesn't care if you do. She simply chooses to exist in your presence as she truly is, unfinished, ungraceful, not nice. That is when the true warmth begins. The one that doesn't come with applause or safety. The one that rises in the body like forbidden instinct. The kind of warmth that doesn't ask for anything. It simply exists where lies have been removed. But this kind of warmth cannot be shared, not with them, because they would ask her to explain why she trusts you, why she opens around the cold, why she moves away from the fire and toward the wind, and there are no words for that. How can she tell them that your silence burns truer than their adoration? How can she explain that you give nothing and somehow it saves her? So she lies again, smiles when they toast her, thanks them for the party, posts the photos. But her eyes are already somewhere else, in the space between your gaze and her breath, in the space where nothing is performed and yet everything is revealed. She has begun to want less, want quieter, want colder, want the kind of presence that does not speak but never leaves. That is your shape. They would call you emotionally unavailable. She would call you real, because your absence has more substance than their praise. Your stillness touches parts of her that their laughter never reached. And that is why she begins to fracture around them. Not dramatically, not rebelliously, just slowly, silently, like a statue cracking in the moonlight. She no longer joins their games. She replies later. She laughs less. They sense it. They ask if she's okay. But not because they care, because they're afraid her silence might be catching, that her coldness might expose the artificial heat they've mistaken for love. You watch her burn slower now, not with rage, but with clarity. She does not want to destroy them. She simply no longer needs them to stay warm. And that is more dangerous than any betrayal. Because once a woman learns to be cold without bitterness, to stand in silence without explanation, to want presence without performance, she is free. And freedom, in their world, is the final sin. She was once the flame they gathered around. Now she is the match they cannot hold. You do not smile when she looks at you, and that is why she knows you see her, and that is why she returns, again and again, to the cold that never lied. She will smile at the mirror one last time, not to admire, but to say goodbye. They will call her cold, they will call her distant, but they will never know the warmth that grew inside her after she stepped barefoot into your silence. There is no fire anymore. No circle, no applause, only the echo of her heels on marble, only the way her shadow curves toward the open door. And somewhere, unseen, a man who never called her beautiful, still watching, still unmoved, still there,